First things first, we gotta draw a fancy pipe. Then digitize it and print it and slap it on a slab of wood. I'm using ebony here because it's dark and brooding, but most pipes are made out of a root called briar. Here, we cut away some of the stock to prepare for drilling. Keeping the stock square prevents the bit from wandering. Once the holes are drilled, we cut out the basic curves. Now we prepare the stem. I made a simple jig to keep the end sticking straight up so it can be milled flat with a Forstner bit. The stem will stay attached to the body via brass dowel. The end is sanded so the epoxy has surface to adhere to. Now, hindsight is 20/20, but I don't actually recommend using brass, but I'll discuss that later. Wipe off the squeeze out and set aside to cure. Here we mill off the end of the pipe body. If you're a reckless cowboy like I am, this will happen. Lucky for us, there's still more material we can work off without compromising the design of the piece. Just go super slow and make sure the drill is running at a high speed. Now we go to town, hogging off as much material as we can between the bandsaw and the belt sander. The more we can get off now, the less work we'll have to do with the Dremel. Speak of the devil, this part is a real grind, but don't worry, it gets worse. This tungsten carbide cutting bit is the most aggressive bit I have, but it should be used with caution. It leaves a rough profile. Run the Dremel too fast, and you can lose control and Dremel your hands off. I find about half to 2/3 speed to be a sweet spot. Oh, and use a respirator, unless you want the black lung. When you've done all you can with that, we load up the sanding bits. I use 1/2 and 1/4 inch. In fact, I'm unaware if they make other sizes, but I digress. This phase will be the last of the shaping and help us transition into smoothing. Now the real fun begins. We have to sand off any marks left by the Dremel here. The first grit is always the hardest and most time consuming. I start with 80, then go to 120, 220, 400, and 600. Anything beyond that gets negligible, but if you're feeling frisky, knock yourself out. I'm paraphrasing in this video, but doing this right will take 5 or 6 hours. Wipe off dust with the rag between grits to make sure there's no hidden scratches. Adding a little bit of water to the rag can help. There's nothing quite like finding a scratch 2 grits deeper than what you're currently working with and having to start over. While we're doing all this sanding, we may as well start sanding the stem too. I don't think they all come this rough, but mine was a pretty cheap vacuum mold and has flashing that needs to be removed and cleaned up. Sanding the stem and body together, attached, will ensure uniformity when the pieces mate. Here's a quick jig that will define the curve of the stem when we go to bend it. To bend the stem, we must first soften it. Submerge the thang in boiling water for 30 seconds or until it's pliable, and then bend to desired shape. Honestly, the jig was just a waste of time. It's mostly hardened by the time you get it in anyway, so just do it by hand. Whatever. Now, the boiling process has irritated some of the surface of the stem around the tip, so we're just going to give that another quick sanding. Remember how I said the brass dowel became a problem? Well, it fell out like 3 more times before the build was done, so I'm just going to skip over all that. Since this build, I've discovered that they actually make vulcanite dowels, which is the same material the stem is made out of. That will be an easy shoe-in replacement for brass dowels moving into the future. The body receives a liberal coat of paste wax. Go easy around the bowl. You don't want the stuff dripping back into your cabbage patch. Okay, now before final assembly, we rub in the paste wax to make this thing shine. They make a polishing compound for stems, but I don't have a buffing wheel, and it looks pretty good for now. Though I will say an uncoated stem will dull quicker with age. And just like that, a fancy pipe. And there you have it. Nothing to it, really. Anyways, if you like this video, make sure you like